welcome to another episode of Keeping London Healthy. My name is Dr. Mario Elia, and we've got a fun episode today. I think we've done enough with COVID for a while. We've done a number of episodes on COVID, so I think it's time that we turn the page a bit, at least for a few episodes this summer. And today we're going to be talking with a colleague of mine, Dr. Aric Sudicky, who's a family doctor in the area, and we're going to be talking about, what does kind of post-COVID life look like with lifestyle, nutrition, and exercise. How do we get back to being healthy and living our best lives? So we're going to be having a conversation with Dr. Aric Sudicky, which I'm sure you guys will enjoy. So we'll see you after this message. Welcome back. So right before we get into our interview with Dr. Sudicky, just going to give a quick PSA for vaccines. Obviously, uptake in London's been great. We're well above 75% for adults getting their first dose, but we're right into the meat of where it's going to get more challenging to get us over that last hump. Because obviously there is about 25% of people in the community who still haven't gotten their first dose. So again, to all of you who've had your doses, amazing. You are now kind of our soldiers in this to spread the word, get your family and friends vaccinated as well. And if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, it's not too late, right? We know we're going to see kind of a grumbling of cases through the summer. As we hit the fall, cases are going to go up. And really, it's the unvaccinated who are going to be the most vulnerable. We're seeing this in the US, we're seeing this in the UK. The vaccinated individuals are getting through this no problem, and those who are ending up in the ICU are by and large those who are unvaccinated. So get your shot, and let's end this pandemic. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Dr. Aric Sudicky. As we've gotten through this pandemic, I think it's fair to say that lifestyle has been an issue for a number of individuals. I know there's obviously the odd case here and there where people are exercising more or eating better, but I think by and large, most of you would agree that we've kind of fallen off of our A game through the pandemic. So I want to bring in Dr. Sudicky to have a conversation about nutrition and exercise. So Dr. Sudicky is a family doctor here in town. So I'll just let you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Nice to meet everybody. I apologize for the setup today. I'm not quite in the studio I'm used to, so if the screen's a little shaky, that's my fault, especially if the audio is a little sketchy. But nice to meet everybody. I'm a full-time cradle to grave family doctor just outside of London in St. Thomas. And before medical school, I worked in the fitness industry for almost 10 years as a full-time fitness professional. So almost 10,000 hours of one-on-one personal training experience with people of different ages, whether it's the elderly or athletes, you name it. And I've slowly integrated that into my family practice over the last few years. And I also used to enjoy making videos with Mario. It's great to be reconnected, my friend. It's been a little while, and I think it's time we got back on the wagon. So I appreciate the invitation to talk about fitness and health as we all transition back to a little bit of normal, which feels great. Just to even see some new faces and see people like yourself spreading the good word, my friend.
So this is one of the neat things about having this show is that we had a few episodes where we brought other COVID experts on, but one of the cool things about the show is that I can bring on people who I look to for guidance on certain issues, and specifically around fitness and nutrition. Aric, you know this. He is one of the people that I look to, probably the person that I look to for guidance on this. So really excited to have him, to ask him some questions today. So let's start with the effect of COVID on nutrition and fitness of your patients, and in practice, what have you noticed, Dr. Sudicky?
I think I've noticed what we all noticed, even ourselves in practice, is that the pandemic absolutely changed people's lifestyles. Not only when it comes to fitness, but when it also comes to nutrition. I saw it in some of my patients' labs over the last year, some lifestyle-related changes, whether it's diabetes control, blood sugar, you name it. But the biggest thing was activity habits, and not by fault. Some people lost access to the gyms they went to and some of the recreation centers, and over a very short period of time, were forced to quickly try and pivot and find other things they enjoy, which isn't an easy task to achieve. So less activity, some unintentional weight gain, and that combines to a lot of challenges when it comes to people's health, whether it's blood work related or even your mental health, right? And I think you probably saw that in your practice as well, is the close link between anxiety and stress and activity levels and our body composition. And that's a vicious circle with all three very closely connected. So the mental health piece is an important piece that I noticed in the practice as well. I mean, the amount of mental health concerns in my practice was, probably threefold over the last year. And of course, connections with that to unintentional lifestyle changes and inactivity related to lockdowns and the pandemic. So absolutely, it brought on a lot of challenges in primary care that I hadn't seen before COVID.
Absolutely. And I think we've all seen those kind of changes in our practice. Let's start with physical activity first, if we can. So, someone at home who admits they haven't been as physically active in the past year and a half, understanding that they want to get going, they know they need to get going. Where would they start? What's your first piece of advice for that individual to kind of start the ball rolling?
My honest advice, and not to oversimplify it, is to keep it simple and use the KISS principle. Really, a lot of people want to rapidly make significant changes after a year of being more sedentary with lofty goals, but I think having realistic expectations is important. I think we can start talking about the long-term big goal, but also having smaller, measurable, more realistic goals along the way can also be important motivators. So, for example, if there's an elderly patient in my practice who lost access to their recreation center, or for whatever reasons just hasn't been more active the last year, maybe it's just walking around the block a few times just to start, just to get outside and stretch your legs a little bit. I think as part of those conversations, though, I think, especially in medicine, we need to also think about the person's health history and make sure that the goals align with the challenges related to their past medical conditions. And maybe their goals can relate to medical conditions as well, whether it's improved diabetes control, but small goals to start with bigger goals down the road. But keeping it very simple is important, because you just can't overcomplicate it, Mario, whether it's just going for a walk, getting outside, going for a hike, maybe doing some gentle strength training exercises in your living room. But I find just trying to have a simplified approach to start, and building on that sets people up for success without having unrealistic expectations to start.
Absolutely, yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think the key to that, one of the keys there is setting those goals, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say I want to get active. I want to start doing all these things. Set those goals. Set like you said, measurable, attainable goals that you can hold yourself accountable to. Putting it on paper even I find is helpful for people. Putting it on your fridge somewhere, or
Absolutely.
somewhere at your office, somewhere where it's kind of in your face repeatedly, and telling people about your goals, whether it's family, friends, not necessarily for them to crack the whip, but again, the more people who are aware of these things that you're trying to do, again, they're there for support as well.
And there's good evidence for that too, right? So studies have shown that formalizing exercise advice as a prescription, so to speak, there is some evidence to suggest it improves adherence and sticking to the program. So, as you know, in my practice, one of the things I have are exercise prescriptions. So in our electronic system, I have some customizable forms that I can fill out and sign it for the patient. But the other important thing to keep in mind too, and I think that's the beauty of fitness, is that you can almost choose the form of the exercise drug, so to speak, that you want. And that's the cool thing with exercise, is it doesn't have to be one particular pill. Walking can be good for you. Strength training can be good for you. Yoga or Tai Chi can be good for you. As long as you find the type you enjoy, that's probably the best form of exercise for you forever. And study after study has shown that there's a long list of benefits to many different forms of exercise, right? So you find what you like, stick to it. And if you just do that forever, it's probably going to be good for you, regardless of the form of activity that you do, which is a nice motivating message for people wanting to get active, right? It's you don't have to do what I do. They don't have to do what you do. Just find what you enjoy and find a way to slowly integrate that into your lifestyle so you stick with it.
And again, this is probably the perfect time of year to be having this conversation, because the menu of options that people have for what they can do in terms of physical activity is not going to be any better, right? We've got July, August, September. It's going to get cold in 3 months. I'm glad we're having this conversation today, because this is the time where I really tell patients, we need to make strides now, right? If we wait till fall, winter, more time inside, we think things are going to snowball,
Yeah.
metaphorically and literally. So now is an important time. Utilize the good weather, get outside, and take advantage of that. some may have tried multiple times during the pandemic to start exercising, but then have stopped. Right, they've kind of started, stopped. Any kind of quick practical advice for how to stay consistent with exercising, making it a habit, not just kind of I went for a run and then I didn't do anything for a month.
I think you can look at it from a macro level and also a bit of a micro level in terms of why there might be some roadblocks. So from a macro level, I think one important question to ask yourself is what's your reason? Are you exercising because of a mother or a father who had a heart attack or a stroke and you want to reduce your risk? Are you exercising just to maintain your strength and fitness with age? Is it a sport related goal? Is it for camaraderie with a friend? You name it. Is it maintaining muscle with age? What's your main reason? And then within that, think about the small little building blocks in your everyday life that can make that happen. And make a list of the challenges, like you're saying, Mario, formalize it. So if my goal is to improve my aerobic fitness, okay, what's my job? What are my work hours? Look at my schedule. Write down into my own schedule the time I'm going to go for a walk. Is it first thing in the morning at 7:30? Is it during my lunch maybe from 12:40 to 1 o'clock every day? Put that reminder in your phone and formalize the plan. And if all that still doesn't work out, think about, am I really enjoying what I'm doing? Back to the beauty of flexibility with exercise benefits. And the same applies with diets, right? What's the saying that Dr. Friedhoff usually says with diets? 95% of people don't fail diets, 95% of diets fail people. And I think that saying applies to fitness. People don't always have to sort of fail fitness programs. Fitness programs potentially might be failing people because it's the wrong match between the type of exercise and the person. So say you're strength training and you hate it and you prefer to do aerobic exercise. Change what you're doing to a form that you really enjoy. Because if the type of activity you're doing is making you miserable, you're not going to do it. For me, it's yoga. Some people love yoga. My wife loves yoga. But I'm not a yoga person. I get crushed. Every time, can you imagine, picture me doing yoga? And I know I got to do yoga, Mario, when I get older. I got to stretch, buddy. But I love to lift. I got to crush the weights. So I just don't enjoy yoga, which is why I don't do it, which is fine, right? So if you're not enjoying what you're doing, the cool thing with exercise is choose a different pill. Change the form of the pill. And any form long-term is probably going to be good for you. So that really is a practical thing to think about if you're having those roadblocks, right? Is just change the form of the pill, find a different form, and any form that you sustain lifelong is probably going to be good for you. And it can be cheap. There's not a cost barrier to a lot of forms of activity.
And linking that kind of motivation, I find as well, what is the motivation for the exercise? I know people get stuck around, trying to lose the weight, but truthfully, I find, me personally, one of the things I notice when I'm not exercising is fatigue becomes, and kind of lack of kind of get up and go is the motivation. So, finding kind of what is motivating you. And for again, it shouldn't be just about weight for the majority of people, and then kind of linking that to that activity regularly. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a bit about nutrition. Welcome back. Again, we're being joined by Dr. Aric Sudicky, local family doctor, and we're going to jump into some questions about nutrition now. What are some, so obviously you've got a lot of patients, you've heard a lot of stories. What are some kind of less than ideal meal habits that you've kind of heard from patients and things that have kind of crept in over the pandemic?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because we'll see if there's any sort of actual data to support the anecdotes that we see in our practice, right? But there has been some trends. One of them was related to the lockdowns and the food people had access to. So during the most stringent lockdowns we had, if we think about the type of food people still had access to, a lot of it was fast food. During some of the lockdowns, you can still buy some donuts or whatever you want, but the markets were closed. Fresh produce was more difficult to access. So fast food was still accessible. I find some of those other options were closed. So if you combine more inactivity, staying inside all day, with more access to hyper palatable, ultra processed foods, with stress and COVID related anxiety, you're going to get a lot of, quote unquote, unhealthy lifestyle changes, and not necessarily to the fault of the patient, right? It's just the perfect storm to make it really difficult to stick to healthy eating habits. So I did see that. really hard to navigate because it was just the perfect storm of getting hit in all directions. That's where those habits come in, and also, thinking about your long-term motivators and really trying to navigate those challenges and think quick on your feet in terms of meal planning. But still, the fast food continued, and I think it's because it was still accessible, with other options not necessarily as available during the lockdowns.
I know for me personally, at various points during the pandemic, when certain restaurants, obviously weren't doing well because of they couldn't open to indoor dining. A lot of us kind of felt almost an obligation to support them in a way, but that was almost kind of a gateway, if you will, to eating out more. And I think for me personally, that's kind of continue to creep in, eating out more than I would have otherwise. So and again, for me personally, I found lunchtime to be a bigger issue than it was pre-pandemic. Not preparing my lunch in advance, heading out for fast food. And not necessarily, we're not talking McDonald's or Burger King or those places, but even your shawarma place, your Subway, things that are less bad for you, but still, those calories add up over time. Now, what advice do you have for people who've kind of fallen into this routine?
Plan, 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 and try to plan in a way that you think still makes you happy and is realistic based on your budget and your time. I can't say it enough. There's no real secret or quick fix to, especially planning around busy work schedules. It's sitting down, thinking in advance about a way you can plan your meals around your schedule, right? So yesterday, for example, yesterday I was in the office around 7:45. I had a full clinic day. It was my evening clinic day, so I ran the clinic till after 7 o'clock last night. So I was at work for almost 12 hours. Last weekend, I had some pre-made lunches that were frozen in the basement. That was my lunch. I had to pack some cold snacks for breakfast or for mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Cold snacks are nice and fast and easy. Fruit, nuts and seeds, maybe a shake or something is something you can quickly have and eat even as a busy doc. Your lunch is pre-made in bulk. And then supper is sort of the wild card, right? Do you have to plan that extra meal? Do you have some pre-made food at home for a quick supper when you get home, or some pre-made products you can put together into a quick salad? But if you're not planning in advance, hunger is going to happen no matter what. We know ghrellin's going to hit you in the face, right, and make you hungry. So that's a guarantee. So if you don't plan food to compensate for that hunger later in your workday, you're going to have to get it somewhere, and it'll probably be the fast food joint across the street. But it's the weekend when it's Sunday afternoon and there's that gap in your afternoon and there's that 30 minutes. Plan, make something in bulk, bake some meats or veggies, or if you're a vegetarian, bake some extra veggies, whatever you eat, freeze it in bulk, pick it up in the morning from your freezer, and you'll thank yourself years from now. But it's that practical planning, my friend. It really is.
And even doing it with the family too, right? Making this like a once a week family where you sit down, you decide what are we eating every day, what are we going to need, who's cooking what, um, and I know a lot of you are on social media, following Instagram accounts that focus on healthy eating, that have good meal advice, getting out your healthy cookbooks. Again, trying to make this fun and not and doing it in bulk. I know you and I have talked about this, and you've given me some great advice over the years. Doing things in bulk is huge, right? Because we all have the same time issues.
Yes.
We all struggle with that exact same. Like, you have no, if you guys saw what Aric prepares every week, it's amazing. But there's nothing magic about it, right? He takes the time, he puts the effort and does it in bulk, and works so well for him. Late night snacks, let's talk about quickly. A lot of us bored watching TV at night, late night eating stuff at home, likely a big source of weight gain for many through the pandemic. What's your approach to this with patients?
I think, first of all, we should touch on the myth of does the time of day make a huge difference around weight gain, right? And the answer is no, right? It's more of the volume of food you're eating. So, so first of all, don't be afraid of snacking at night. Absolutely fine if you want to have a snack. The risk is of weight gain is all in the portion and the amount of calories in those snacks, right? So if somebody's quote unquote snack is a trip to fast food and you're having a 1,500, 2,000 calorie meal at 10 o'clock at night with some liquid calories in the form of some juice or pop with it, that's going to put you at risk of weight gain if that happens day after day for weeks and months and years. Now, if your bedtime snack still fills you up, but is a bit lower in calories, higher in fiber, maybe a little higher in protein, would be a good example. High fiber crackers with garlic hummus would be delicious. It's still going to fill you up. Garlic hummus is delicious. You can still get some really tasty high fiber crackers these days. There's a snack that can still fill you up. It's not a ton of calories because it's not liquid. It takes up space in your stomach, which helps release the hormones that tell your brain that it's time to feel full. But if the snack is liquid, soft, especially fast food is often that texture, you can eat a lot of it and a lot of calories, and that puts you at risk of weight gain over days, weeks, and months. So it's all about what you choose. So you don't have to be afraid, but that snack should be hopefully some higher in fiber, a little bit of protein maybe to help satiate you, and your muscles will recover while you sleep. If you have some too, is totally fine.
And you mentioned portions. One thing that I find helpful when I can motivate myself to do it is using smaller bowls, telling myself this is what you're getting, rather than the whole bag of chips goes to the sofa with you, or the entire bag of crackers, because inevitably, you probably will get to the end of that bag if that's the approach you take. So taking a deep breath before you even start consuming it, deciding on your portion, and agreeing, that's going to be your portion for the meal. One other quick thing I want to touch on before we part is around alcohol. And I think most of us in our practice have noticed an increase in alcohol consumption during the pandemic. We've seen some studies that actually bear this out now. And obviously, we're concerned about our patients' long-term health with the amount that alcohol has gone up.
Yes.
You've heard about this with patients. Kind of what's your approach been? What's some things that you've told patients about this?
Yeah, I think that's an important topic, particularly in the concept of COVID. I think one of the first questions is the why. What led you to drink more? Is it because you feel depressed? Is it anxiety? Did you lose your job? Are finances tight because of COVID? So right away, I think one of the questions is this particularly related to a change in your mental health status, right? And then the usual other questions, is there a family history of alcoholism if there's a lot being consumed? And then the family medicine side of it should be covered too. If it's been chronic over time, do we add some blood work, screen for liver enzymes, you name it? And then for practical planning, there's a lot of overlap between that and other lifestyle changes, right? So realistic expectations. If it's somebody who's consuming 5 or 6 or 7 beers a day, it's not realistic to stop cold turkey.
Aric, thanks so much for joining us today. I give a bit of a personal anecdote. I can tell you right now, again, we're 18 months into COVID, and your host here is probably in the worst shape of his entire life, at the highest weight I've ever been. And part of that's nutrition. The majority of that's nutrition. Part of it's a little exercise. So, I thought this was actually a perfect time, because I know a lot of viewers are probably in the same boat. Bringing yourself on to have a chat about all these factors, and hopefully everyone can take a little bit of, whether it's the exercise piece or the nutrition piece, kind of deciding on those goals, talking with family, what kind of things can we work together on to start moving in the right direction, because now is the time to make a lot of these changes, right? We're coming out of the pandemic. We've got so much optimism. Vaccines are working. We're going to get back to our normal lives, and we need to kind of start treating our bodies well. So Dr. Sudicky, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Sure. I think if there's any message to viewers, especially around exercise, is the best form of exercise for you lifelong is the one you enjoy. So have fun with it. Explore different types of physical activity, whether it's aerobic, strength training, yoga, tai chi. And then once you find the one that brings you pure joy, do it forever. Any form long-term is going to be good for your health.
Thanks again to Dr. Aric Sudicky for joining us on the show today for a really informative conversation about diet and exercise and what we need to know moving forward post-COVID. So until next time, stay healthy.